reflect the opinion of the host, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my sensor light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
You see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean, the Fort Chop Forker. He's Vance Nesbitt, drinking a Bud Light because he's got no other taste in beer. Is James Baker, and down in our bottom corner, Henry May, folks. Guys, it's great to at least see you. Well, I can see you. You can't see me tonight, but we're here nonetheless.
Yeah.
I think he's phoning it in.
What?
I'm phoning you in.
too, dude. I really do. I think so.
I'd like to see this show go without me for 1 week. That's all I'm saying.
Well, no.
See?
Well, here we go. Yeah.
Now.
Bake talks.
No. Don't be. You'll get your panties in a way.
I ask you for 1 hour a week, and sometimes that's a chore.
Hey, the train already went by.
Yeah, I know. How about it, guys? It's been a while. The last show we did was recapping the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and of course talking about Snow Grove Lake. Got a lot of comments on Snow Grove. It's an interesting place, and I think the remoteness of it lends to more of the mystique and the aura of being Sasquatch prime territory. Corey, past guest from Canadian Bigfoot Encounters Part 1 and 2. Corey was telling us that he doesn't live that far from Snow Grove Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we kind of take that for granted sometimes we might be a little far from it, but he's actually, Vance, I wonder how far you are from Snow Grove.
No, I'm far enough. Yeah. I mean, it's due north of me, but it's quite a bit north of me. So I believe it's about 700 miles north. So
that's a stretch.
That. Yeah, no, it's a big stretch. Yeah.
How about it? That's not something you can skip to. It's not a day trip.
Well, you could if you had. No. Well, whatever. We won't go down that way.
So it's just not feasible to do that in a day from Vance's house.
No.
But Corey apparently is, a lot closer than we are to that place. And I don't know. I just feel like at some point we need to bite the bullet and do a Sasquatch Experience expedition.
Oh, that would
head
be
out to one of these places.
That would be BADASS, wouldn't it?
We got a lot of friends out there that want to do expeditions, and we've been talking about it. I think it's time we suit up and get out there. We lots of stuff going on from the past coming out. Sasquatch Archive. I don't know if you guys follow that on YouTube. Our friend Todd Prescott.
Yep.
But he is just posting stuff left and right. An old video of Mark DeWorth and Don Keating.
Yeah.
Some excellent material. And then there's a Tom Steenberg presentation he did on why can't I think of the name of it now? It lost me. I just watched it this evening.
The Crandall Campground incident.
Crandall,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
everybody likes to call it Crandall Lake, but he's in the presentation, he's like, no, it's Crandall. And Henry, we got to work on getting Thomas on the show. It's been a long time since we talked to Tom Steenberg.
Yeah,
we're talking about over almost 15 years. It's been a long time since we've talked to him.
Right.
One of the podcasts that can say we've been broadcasting for that long and having conversations with people. And it's just interesting to see how their viewpoints have changed and how they've changed and how we've all changed over the years from when we started this to where we're at now, because none of us, I don't think, hold exactly the same positions as we used to. But that's what's part about this podcast and having a record and history of it is we can go back and listen. And there are archives we're going to post. Just, I guess, as a programming note before we go too far into the episode. I'm a little sporadic. I apologize. I went off my own notes. We're going to go back to bi-weekly, which means every other week will be filled with some sort of archive material. And if you're a Patreon, of course, which, guys, you can subscribe for as little as
$2.
$2 a month. We're going to be sitting down recording quite a bit of watch-alongs because if you haven't listened to our watch-alongs, you're missing out on some comedy gold. Now, listen,
they're missing.
We
out
do
on
live in the day of
mental.
cancel. Yeah, we live in the day of cancel culture now, so you have to understand that when we talk about these things, it is just in the interest of comedy. It's not meant to be hurtful or harmful.
No.
No fat people were, harmed in the making of our watch-alongs.
No, of course not.
And just so you know, if you'd like to save $2, if you help Henry make a fifth, we will donate that $2 every month. It'll be like
we'll all pitch in on that. There you go.
After all the years of doing this show, I don't think we've ever asked Henry if he actually wanted a fifth. That could be. Leave the poor man alone.
This is true. Hey, I need to clarify. Right. I want to clarify something, Sean. When you say we're going bi-weekly, that's just for the summer season.
Yeah, it's just for the summer. That's correct. Right. Thanks for clarifying that up there. You don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The summer, we get busier, folks. We got something. Well, and actually, that kind of segues us into our next conversation is upcoming events. We got the Forest County Bigfoot Festival that James Baker and I will be at in June. Woo-hoo! June 10th through the 12th in Marionville, Pennsylvania. It is a family event, so we will behave ourselves. Joining us will be Matt Arner, past guest on the program. Love Matt. Amy Boo, of course, who is the I believe the MC, or at least the Keystone speaker. Jamie and Jenny King, always great people to talk with. David Wickham's going to be on there. Kevin Alec Jevzik, who will be joining us too. I'm not familiar with Kevin, but he's part of Project Zoo Book. Oh, look, we got a comment from an asshole. His name is Robin G. Longjohn. Laugh my ass off. You'll never find the big guy just wasting time and money. But it's you're right. It is our money. And the best part is I can also hide your comment and boot your ass, you idiot. I don't think you understand that trolling our show leads you to a big pot of nowhere, you stupid idiot. So do me a favor, pull the bottom lip over your head and swallow, or do us another favor. Take a hammer and break your fingers.
Ooh. Well, that's okay.
If you think we haven't heard this before, you're even stupider than your comment. So carry on. Bonafide jackass.
Okay. We'll accept everybody's comment.
That's right, even if they are stupid. Okay, back to the family event, because I kind of blew that, didn't I? But there's going to be a
you blew something.
You can get a Bigfoot license there in Marionville and go on the Bigfoot safari for $10.
Special ladies can get a face painting.
Oh, I've got no time for assholes like that. I'm sorry. I don't. If they haven't been listening to this show and they just joined us, I'm not the guy to trifle with.
Not tonight. No, not tonight. Give Baker a couple of more Bud Lights, and you won't want to trifle with him either. So,
yes.
Tell you what. Anyhow,
that's okay.
So we got. I also found out through looking at the vendors page that our friends Eerie Eric and Creepy Carrie for Giorgio.
Nice, the Far Giorgios.
Ryan Cavaline from Legend Hunters Films. Ryan was also on the show. He'll be joining us. So it'll be good to have Ryan there. They're Myths and Monsters or Myths and Mutants. One of the films they were working on when he was talking to us last is now on Tubi.
Right.
Tubi.tv. It's an app. You guys can download it. And if you don't have it already, it's free. And not only that, they have some small town monsters documentaries out there, a lot of decent Bigfoot documentaries and some really bad ones. But you take the good, you take the bad, you take them all.
Take it home. There you have
the facts of life. All right.
Xfinity also gives you Tubi for free.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody gets Tubi for free. It's a free app. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just that you could just say Tubi into your Xfinity remote, and it's
right.
Xfinity doesn't give you anything for free. I mean, you're paying for it.
No, but
Tubi's free by itself.
Yeah, if you get it on if you take it off your phone,
if you had to buy it dinner first, I understand it wasn't free.
Yeah. This right. You want something? Just buy it dinner first. But yeah, you can download the Tubi app and watch it at no cost to you.
There's some quality shows on there.
There is. I use Tubi quite a bit actually.
Puppet Master.
Because I'm a cheap old geezer and
classic.
I ain't spending money on that. What the hell? Back in my day, we used to walk to the movie theater for 25 cents and watch a film.
Yeah, a film.
Go to the movie pictures.
Hello, Brian Corbin, our executive producer.
Hey.
Good to see Brian back with us live. We've all been so busy and disconnected. It's been weird, but, we're getting the weirdness out of it and getting back, and, things are better than ever here as we wrap up. The next couple weeks we'll be wrapping up season 5, Farther North. And then who knows what we're going to go into. Well, it's 5.5 now because we took a break. So it's, we're back on the other half or quarter, whatever. Your actual mileage may vary. Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, July 23rd. At least so far, James Baker and I will be there. And I think our executive producer is probably joining us too, Brian Corbin. The speakers for that event, Dr. Jeff Meldrum.
Who's that? He's a nobody.
He is an amazing man. I am not. No.
James Baker loves Dr. Meldrum. He really does.
Okay, so
there's a crush there.
Okay, so look, you usually go to these events, and the speakers are kind of like, hey, when I'm doing my thing, I'm my own guy, whatever. He's out there in the lobby. People are wandering by, and they're like, oh, we're so sorry to bother you. He goes, no. If I wanted to be alone, I'd be sitting in my room.
He's a good guy.
He's a very good person.
Yeah,
and
he is.
We told a story about the deer to a couple that was at the table with us, and they're telling Meldrum the story, and Ferguson's like, hey, I got to get into this because it's actually our story. But he was so interested. He was so interested in the story, and then he goes, oh, that shit happens all the time. And I'm like, whoa.
Wait a minute.
What counties am I not living in?
No.
That a man
so that's Baker's interpretation. Meldrum didn't swear. That's Baker's interpretation.
Okay,
yeah,
right. How is it that these places, like a man of his caliber, would know about, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Vaporizing deer.
And the greatest thing is and I keep saying about OBC it wasn't exactly the presentations. Like I didn't actually sit through a lot of presentations because I had a lot of other stuff going on. Right. But the after conversations were very good. They just little things that would come out like, hey, if you don't get it right, it doesn't mean that everything's gonna fall apart. He's just a good person. So when somebody goes,
very down to earth. He's got both of his feet fully planted and is not judgmental to anybody. No, he's a good guy. He was
working his table, and anybody walked up, he was like, "Oh, you're not going to buy something? I still want to talk to you."
Right.
There were other people at the event that were all like, "Oh, you're not giving me money? Okay, go away." And I understand it's a business, but the man has class. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I totally agree with you. He's down to earth, and he's a human, and he's acting that way. So,
yeah, Meldrum.
2 enthusiastic thumbs up for Dr. Meldrum. There you go.
All right.
So back to the speakers.
Sorry,
Baker. We got to give it's okay. It's a conversation night. You can vent your love for Meldrum all you want.
I love him. I love Lauren Coleman for two different reasons.
They're your buddies. The cast of Expedition Bigfoot will be at there, except for Bryce. But you have Dr. I can't ever say her name right. Her last name, Dr. Mariah. Is it Mayor?
I think
Henry?
so.
Did I get it right? Yeah.
No, we'll just let you make an ass of yourself. Go ahead.
Well, it happens. Russ Accord, Ronnie LeBlanc, Stacy Brown Jr., of course, a friend of mine. Met him once a long time ago, but always been a nice guy to me on the social media. And David Bacara of the Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia. If you get a chance, guys, go out and check that out. Blue Ridge, Georgia, Expedition Bigfoot Museum. Bake, we'll have to hit that when we're going to Tennessee. I think we can swing through and see it. Might put that on the road trip.
Ooh. Put it in the GPS.
And then, of course, your master of ceremonies, Ryan Golembeski, old RPG himself, who was on season 1 for an episode of Expedition Bigfoot. Good dude. Met him in Ohio. Another guy that's just, he's kind of like Jamie King. You gravitate to him, and he just,
right.
There's a certain je ne sais quoi about him that just, makes you comfortable.
So is there something we need to know from Brian about RPG? We'll be there with
enjoys the ganja a little bit. That's all that happens. He enjoys the ganja, maybe.
So maybe he's not flying in.
Yeah, no, he might be flying in, just not on an aircraft, but he'll be flying in.
When we went to pick up Henry, the group in front of us just, oh my God.
Yeah, we got high. We had to stop at a plane.
Wow.
We got Henry off the plane. Walking to the vehicle, we trailed these folks that definitely, took part in the Puffin the Magic Dragon, and I think the three of us got a contact eye. We immediately got hungry, which isn't hard because we're all fat anyhow, and stopped at some roadside food shack and had some mediocre food at best. It wasn't bad.
Doing some Puff Daddy, are you? Okay.
You couldn't help it, man. It just wafted you.
Wow, and it worked
pretty
effectively.
The oregano was strong with them.
Yeah.
It was something. But, go back to Ohio. We had a great weekend at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and I think these conferences are a great opportunity to connect because we had a good time being able to sit down with Cliff Barrickman. Cliff and I have been friends long before he was on Finding Bigfoot. I should say acquaintances. We've become friends the last few years because we've actually been able to hang out. But, and just be able to have some really good conversation about where we're at with evidence. He showed me some video, some footage that, I don't say video, pictures that haven't been out there because I've always been curious. What other pictures has Cliff gotten over the years of solid Bigfoot evidence? Because folks, some people don't want their stuff out there. Right. Some people, I'm convinced that somebody out there has the video or has the picture of the century and they're not going to let it out because they don't want the ridicule.
Right. Right. There's something interesting since you brought Cliff up in the conversation. I believe it was yesterday, perhaps. It was on Sunday. I was watching the latest installment of Small Town Monsters production with Alex Petikoff. And, he picks up the phone and he calls Cliff to ask him how to cast a print that's on a slight incline. And, this is how Cliff is. He's so extremely happy to help anybody out that has his personal contact. And he obliges and gives pointers on how to do a proper cast in an unusual situation to the best of his knowledge. And he shares whatever he knows with those enthusiasts that have shown, the interest in the field and are serious researchers. But, that just categorizes Cliff as to who he is. He's another one of those that will just lay down whatever. He's got both feet on the ground and wants to get to an answer to, and will help anybody, no matter who they are. If you have a contact with him, he'll help you out at least to get an answer to a problem that you might have out in the field.
And and not to take anything away from Cliff, because Cliff's a good guy, but that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm. No,
don't go out and tote yourself. And he doesn't tote himself as being an expert. He'll tell you that.
No,
he just happens to be fortunate to be in the place where he's at to be able to do some good squatching.
Right.
But if you're going to tout yourself as one of the leading investigators and a professional, which again, he does not, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but then your actions should be able to back that up. Right.
Oh, sure.
And, is that the way it is for everybody? No. In fact, over the last few months, I've seen posts about how, people who use this platform to make money should be ashamed of themselves, and how, certain people don't get speaking engagements at certain things. So it's all a top tier club, and it's exclusive, and it's all bullshit. It's what you make of it, folks. I've been in this field a long time, and I'm no better than anybody else. But you know what? I could speak at many different conferences. Do I? No. And you know why? It's not my thing. Yeah. I'd rather be the guy that you can come to ask for help than to be the guy that you want to go buy tickets to see me talk about the same shit I've been talking about for the last 26 years. And that's not putting anybody down that does it. It's just not my thing. I'd rather be low key behind the scenes. And you know what? Honestly, my field work time varies year to year. If I'm having a busy year at work, my field work suffers. If I'm having a slow year at work, I'm in the field. James and I spend at least a solid day a week in the field, in the woods, doing a project we've got going on that, is pretty, it's not even really Sasquatch related, but it becomes Sasquatch related. And I keep trying to upload this picture of a tree structure that I just can't get to upload. And that's
stupid things.
And this is important to the conversation tonight, because we were at dinner. No, it wasn't dinner. We were out having drinks that night, Thursday night before the conference.
So many drinks.
And a very heated conversation sparked about tree structures.
Right.
Now, we all know this has been a point of contention for years about what these tree structures are, what they mean. Ain't nobody see a Bigfoot make them, but everybody's got an opinion on them. But what I can tell you is James and I find an awful lot of tree structures on our property out there.
Right.
But you know what we also determine? They're naturally made.
It's an X. It's an X. Call Mulder.
Call Mulder.
Call Mulder.
You got
my favorite clip from those crazy Canadians.
And then the wind blows at another tree, and they kind of connect.
No, very true.
And then later on, maybe another tree winders up there, and it looks like a little cave structure. But the thing is yes, an animal might use that to get out of the rain. But nothing created it, because you could just see the way the roots are growing out and everything else. Like, you can tell it wasn't manufactured.
Right.
It's not like some creature made a duck blind or a shelter. It's just the way the trees fell.
But
and to clarify the fact,
go ahead.
Just to clarify the fact, there are things that leave you to shrug your shoulders going, okay, I can't see this naturally happening. Those do happen. Those sightings have happened, but there are a number of things where I'm like, well, you know what? You can get a nor'easter coming out of the northeast, blow a tree over this way, and then you get prevailing westerlies that will blow a tree over in this direction, and the next thing you know, you have this bizarro looking tree structure that's completely caused by nature. But there's other situations where trees are either completely upside down and used in a unusual structure, and you can see a little bit more manipulation for shelter or a signature of some sort or a marker of some sort. That leaves some question, but there's a lot that I see. These are, and not necessarily.
The question gets stretched out when it becomes more of a statement than a question. And the point that we were driving home with this conversation and why it was important is because this conversation got really heated. Because it became an absolute. It became an absolute. Like, no, these are only made by Bigfoot. But we've never seen one make them. Now, there was a gentleman, and Henry. Now, hold on a second. I want to get this point through, and we can't step each other because the listeners, this is a show for listeners that need to hear it.
Yeah.
And Henry,
it's my show, damn it.
That's right. Henry, is Tom Lancaster still around?
As far as I know, I believe so.
So Tom Lancaster is a squatcher from a while back in the mid 2000s, was actually seriously looking in and mapping on, with GPS, these structures to see if they really were navigational points.
Mm-hmm.
And he would find them throughout Virginia. And, he was doing actual research into this, but I think he runs into the same place that until you see something make it, you don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And but the fact is, you've got somebody who is out there documenting it and putting these facts in, but at some point you have to concede that they could be made naturally. And the point Baker was trying to make with this photograph, and I think Cliff got a little pissed at Baker because he didn't understand Baker was actually supporting him with his statement.
I was on his side.
Yeah, Baker was on his side. It was that's how heated the conversation was getting at the moment.
Right.
Was that here's a perfect example of a weird looking weird looking stick structure that was naturally made. And we know it was naturally made because there's before and after shots of when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was just wind, folks. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't, you got these X formations and these areas where people find these, that are almost like sealed off, you shall not pass situations. But what do we really know about it?
Right.
I mean, even to the point with, go ahead, Henry.
The thing I'm fascinated by is the upside down trees that you mentioned that just a few minutes ago. The ones where the roots are up in the air.
Right.
Yeah, that's a conundrum.
That's scary. Now, that's not to say that, there's severe weather events that can have something like that happen, but what are the oddities of it? And then you see some sort of structure along with uprooted trees with the roots in the air. I don't know. There's something to be said about all of that, but hopefully someday we may come to an answer. Is it a natural phenomena through Mother Nature, or is this a bipedal thing that's pulling a tree out, leaving the roots in the air, and then shoving the top of the tree back into the ground again? And what would be the point of doing that? I don't know.
Go ahead, James, make your point. Then we have to take our break.
But you have to look at the base information. Okay, so we take the tree structure as a creature made that. Okay. What other? Okay, so I put a tree somewhere. Okay, and I moved it. I put it there. Okay. What other evidence do you have that I was in that area? Not just the tree. Like, what other evidence? Because there's no way that I ripped a tree out for no apparent reason, jammed it back in the ground, and then left nothing else. Like, does the tree have my hair on it? Is there tracks for me around that? Then you create an evidence profile. That I believe in. I believe in that 100%. I believe in that more than the possibility of a cryptid. Is the fact is that you can start with a tree that's been uprooted. That's phenomenal. Now, then what do you do with that? You go, okay.
Exactly.
Are there any tracks around the tree? No. Is anybody in the 200, anybody in the last 5 miles seen something weird? No. And there's maybe a point where you'll have to say, okay, at 4 o'clock yesterday, there was a twister, and that sucker could have just jammed that tree up and jammed it right back down. So, yes, okay, you are correct. This tree is important. But if you don't have you don't have the rest of the science to back it up, you just have a phenomenon.
But, I've also given consideration to is what I would refer to as the peacock effect. A male peacock will spread its beautiful feathers and give a big display. Mm-hmm. What if a Sasquatch flips a tree upside down and has the roots up in the air? Any other being in the area may say, holy crap, we're out here, or attractive female because they're showing some serious strength. That's the only other thing.
Exactly.
Okay, there's male veracity here. We'll hang in this area or leave the area because you see this and it's just, this is its statue. This is its monument. This is its icon to show, you don't want to mess in this area because this is what I can do.
All
and
right.
we've had that conversation before where we find the backpack of the guy that's been missing for 6 weeks. How do we know it didn't lay it there to go, hey, I ate this guy, I'll eat you too.
Yeah.
True. And on that thought, let's take our break and we'll continue this right after the news. Smoke them if you got them, folks. We'll be back in about 6 minutes.
Dr. Squatch, soapies you up and cleans your crotch. Feeling clean, smelling fresh. The girls will want to take off their dress. Look out! Here comes the Dr. Squatch.
No, you're not a superhero, but you can feel and smell fresh like one with Dr. Squatch soaps and shampoos. Many exciting scents and purposes to achieve a clean and odor-free you. Use our exclusive promo code DSQEXP to receive 20% off $20 or more. Dr. Squatch soap, square shape that feels great. Promo code DSQEXP.
Dr. Squatch, soapies you up and cleans your crotch. Feeling clean, smelling fresh. The girls will want to take off their dress. Look out! Here comes the Dr. Squatch.
I think Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem. It's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is blurry. And that's extra scary to me because there's a large, out-of-focus monster roaming the countryside.
I completely concur. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and this is the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than James Baker, fiction news and stories. Let's get right into some math. I'll make this as quickly as I can. You don't need a calculator, and this isn't a pop-up quiz. What we're going to do in a 2020 research study release states with the most Bigfoot sightings by population. Population meaning human population. Coming in at number 1 on the list, which should be no surprise to anybody, at just under 8 million people in that state, there were 676 reported sightings. And again, there's probably a lot of sightings that haven't been reported. 676 in the state of Washington with just under 8 million people. Oregon, 4 million people and has 254 reported sightings. Again, a low population center of people, but a pretty big number of reported sightings. So rather interesting if you take it into that context. Florida, 21 million people at 328 sightings of what I would assume would be the skunk ape, but still a hairy hominid type creature. Next is Ohio. I always thought it was pronounced Idaho, but Ohio at 11,689,100 people had 302 reported sightings of a Bigfoot creature. Next is Illinois. Illinois is coming in closely to 13 million people in the state, and of course the largest concentration of people that reside in the state of Illinois is in the Chicago metro area in northeast Illinois and kind of spatters throughout the state into other urban areas, but 296 reports out of the state of Illinois. Oregon. Now, again, Oregon with a low number, 254. So we find that really interesting. Michigan. Just under 10 million people in the state of Michigan. 220 reports of a Sasquatch type of creature. These numbers are kind of fascinating just for the fact of the lower the population center, but yet over 200 reported sightings of a hairy hominid type creature. You total those numbers up. There's something quite convincing about that. Another interesting fact, the state of Alaska, really 731,554 humans that reside in the state of Alaska. Not even a million. 731,545. 22 reports. Oklahoma, 4 million people, 104 sighting reports. So we take this, it's pretty interesting. Let's go to probably the least on the list, North Dakota. 6 reported sightings. The human population, 762,062 people. So you can kind of balance it out. Yeah, only 6 reported sightings, but we don't even have 1 million people in the state of North Dakota. If you ever been there, you'd understand why. Thanks again for listening to Math with me, Vance Nesbitt, at the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction News. And I'm just going to get comfy back in my seat and pick up this conversation where the Squatch Boys left off at. Thanks again.
And we're back. Thank you, Vance, for that lovely news break. Some interesting tidbits with population facts there, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've got one other thing to add to that. If you
sure, go ahead.
Are interested, which I would think you would be interested, which I left out deliberately. Pennsylvania. Now, your population in Pennsylvania is 12,700,000 people. Now, a good portion of that are in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, correct?
Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Reading, Lancaster, southwestern Pennsylvania is pretty loaded population.
There you go. But over the extended period of time, which wasn't done in this research, but over the extended period of time, the amount of sightings, 13,000 reported sightings in Pennsylvania. So there you go. You walk away with a crown right there, and I think you're going to find one on Big's property at some point here.
Well, I tell you, though,
some kind of body.
I wanted to do an episode on the areas that were like North Dakota, South Dakota. Mm-hmm. We had a friend who's now passed away, Rich McClure, and Henry, I believe, remembers Rich. He used to live up in the Dakotas. And he was really passionate about Bigfoot activity up there. And I think we go into the same situation because it's not population dense. It's very remote that you just have a situation where I don't think people are reporting it.
And I would agree. I've spent time in the Air Force in Minot, North Dakota, which is nothing but flat fields of sunflower. And that's about it. You'll see a farm here and there, but it's just flat lands. South Dakota, I've been to several times. There's some interesting reports that come out of South Dakota, even though they're not substantial to the reports in which I gave a news report. But there are some interesting reports through the Black Hills of South Dakota, which has a lot of forest land, but it's the Black Hills of South Dakota. And that's where Mount Rushmore resides, by the way. So you kind of get a sense of what the landscape is like. You could see that, something would be there, but the population is so scarce in those areas because it is wilderness and it is very remote. So why not have something be there with a very minimal amount of human contact?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take from North Dakota. Yeah, I just don't see the what I would refer to as the hide lands in North Dakota because it is and it gets so miserably cold there in the winter season. I don't know any mammals that would be able to survive unless they could burrow underground. But then again, I'll go back to episodes in the past, cave systems as being underground and such. But the winters in North Dakota are just so brutal because there's nothing to stop the winds from intense sub-zero below winds. It's just miserable.
Now, I wish we would have kept those maps up that showed the, underground cave system with sighting reports and see how that would correlate to like North Dakota, South Dakota. Because, you make a good point there with the, something maybe not living, above ground that could survive pretty well in those. But you know what? Canada's not too far off from Dakota, and there's a lot of sighting reports up there.
Oh, no. Right.
And
but just again, with the majority of the Canadian reports is still a little bit further east of where North Dakota is. So looking at it geographically, there are some flatlands right there that border with North Dakota into Canada, and it does get miserably cold there. But when you start to move a little bit further east, the terrain changes, and then you get into more forest land. And like what you brought up earlier in the show where Corey is at, that would be east of North Dakota. And there's a lot of reports in there. There's a lot of forest lands in that area, a lot of water resources, water tributaries, and a little bit more of a hilly well, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, but I'd also like to look at like Nebraska, Kansas, those areas, in the plains to see Bigfoot sightings in those areas. Now you look at Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma is kind of a unique situation because they've got the, Kiamichi Mountains and whatnot, but still an awful lot of plain, that goes on there. We'd have to look at those in more detail. I think that's definitely maybe something we look at this summer as the plain states and Bigfoot activities, because it's just interesting to think about, interesting to look at maps and see these reports, discuss the reports, bring it all together,
and again
flesh this country out.
Oklahoma, exactly. And with what Oklahoma and what you bring up, in case you're geographically challenged, Oklahoma borders Texas, and it's in eastern Oklahoma, in the Panhandle, where there's a lot of these sightings that moves into eastern Texas, and then you're into bug country, as they are referred to, in eastern Texas and into the Sam Houston National Forest area. So that you take that into consideration too.
Yeah, we had a good friend that lived up there, like I said, Rich McClure, who's passed away, and he was an interesting guy to talk to. He always kept us abreast of what was going on up in that area with Bigfoot sightings. That and into Minnesota. We have friends up in Minnesota too that, we're trying to pull this season 5 together, kind of trying to wrap it up with, a nice bow, figure out what we've it's called Farther North because we wanted to explore Canada, Alaska, the higher states, because that seems to be where there are more sightings that come from. But Vance, as you pointed out, like you do have anomalies like the North Dakota and and Maine, itself, which
and New Hampshire,
depending on who you talk to, though, can be has more Bigfoot sightings than's reported, and like I believe that's the case anywhere, though. But I'd like to see more of it on paper and in books. I know there's some more books coming out about, regional books. I was talking to Dr. Meldrum, Eric Altman, and I at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and we're, talking about writing books. And, Dr. Meldrum's like, I wish people would write smaller books, that are kind of more tied to regions. And, it makes a lot of sense because I think so many of us that are trying to write books, where I'm stuck at in the process of writing the book for, my book, is I'm trying not to do an overview of, like, if you're reading my book, you already know Sasquatch, right? You already know about it enough to pick up a book written by a researcher. So why the hell do I have to go back in and give you the backstory on Bigfoot?
Right.
Like, to me, it's kind of like I could take out 2 chapters of regurgitated crap and just start off with, why am I here? What are we doing? And what's happened in this area, right? And it's a much better, tighter story. And I think a lot, more folks should take that approach that's recommended by Dr. Meldrum, because, everybody rehashes Patterson Gimlin. Everybody rehashes Paul Freeman.
Right.
But why do, we need more about what they're doing, which is why I appreciate Dr. Rush Jones' books, because he's doing that. He's talking about what he's doing in these areas he spent. So I only get to spend a few minutes with with Dr. Jones and OBC, but he is going to come on the program with us. We just got to hit him up.
Right,
and
right.
And the officer Hickenbottom from the naturalist from the Ohio, I call him DCNR here. Every state's got a different term for him,
right.
but he's a naturalist and he does a presentation on Sasquatch. These are the guys we need to hear more from, and guys like us, that have practical experience in the areas they research. And I think that's a little bit like I got this book here on my desk that I bought for just historical context. It's called The Historical Bigfoot by Chad Arment. And this thing, I could bludgeon someone to death with it. 1,000 pages. But, it's all good material because a lot of this is stuff that maybe some people haven't heard before. And then right underneath it is a booklet I got from Don Keating at the last OBC. That's maybe 50 pages, if that, about his research. So this is the stuff that, folks really need to get their hands on and read. And Henry, I'm going to use that as a segue into our next topic because we got an email from a listener today. It actually came in tonight, and I'm going to read it. It's from our listener, Casey. Hi, Sasquatch Experience guys. I just wanted to say how much I'm enjoying your podcast. I've always been fascinated by the Sasquatch phenomena and stumbled upon your podcast after listening to a Missing 411 episode. I started with your season 4, The Missing, and was hooked. I was also surprised when I heard that 2 of you are from the South Williamsport area. I'm also from Central PA. Well, hello, neighbor. How are you? I've been listening to older episodes. 2 of you are from the South Williamsport area. I'm also from Central PA. Well, hello, neighbor. How are you? I've been listening to 2 of you from the South Williamsport. You got a mute button? Thanks, buddy. Okay. I've been listening to older episodes and enjoy when Henry talks about his book suggestions. I love to read and agree that so much can be learned about the subject by reading books. Somebody's been listening to my rants. I've heard you mention Henry's book list, but is this on your website? I'd really love to see what books he recommends. Thank you again for doing such a cool podcast. I've learned a lot and look forward to listening to your future episodes. Keep up the great work. Sincerely, Casey. And Henry, somebody appreciates your books and your book list. We got to get that book list up. But you used to have quite the bibliography that you had written up. You had it on your blog.
Yeah, I did. But it's been revised. It's been updated and everything like that. So
what are you reading now? So Casey could pick it up if she wanted to go out. And
I'm currently reading Between Ape and Human by Dr. Gregory Forth.
Okay.
And that is about a tribe of people called the Lio, L-I-O, who live on the island of Flores, and they are having experiences with ape men. Ape men only about 3.5 feet tall.
No, that's creepy.
My relatives.
Now, Flores, the island of Flores is famous because of the Homo floresiensis, the hobbits. But this is supposed to be a different species from the hobbits.
Right. Interesting.
Oh, so this is not just the hobbit that they collected, the specimen of. This is supposed to be something completely different.
Right.
Well, that's really cool. How did you get turned on to this book, Henry?
I just I'd seen several individuals saying it looked like it was going to be a really good book. I guess you could say Daniel Perez and Jeff Meldrum kind of influenced me to.
I do know Dr. Meldrum's got another book he's been working on, a couple more books he's been working on.
Right.
I'm just finishing up myself, The Appalachian Bigfoot by Dr. Rush Jones. And
Great
I've
book.
wanted to, there's a gentleman out there, Carter Bouchard. I want to start diving into his books. And then there's also another one out there I want to read by Toby Emerson called Bigfoot Sightings of the American Civil War.
Oh,
no.
Now I think that's because it's got some, might have some interesting historical context there.
Right.
But I subscribe to Amazon or Kindle Unlimited, so I get access to a lot of books for, because I pay for it, like Stay Out of the Woods, Tom Lyons, those kind, there's all kinds of anthologies out there. Steve Stockton writes a lot of books, National Park Mysteries and Deer Disappearances. David Wilbanks, actually, Henry, you and I have been trying to locate David Wilbanks to talk to him. He just put a book out, Kiamichi Bigfoot, investigating the Oklahoma Sasquatch. That one is going to, that one's in the list now. I might stop reading what I'm reading now and go read that, because there was an old documentary called Bigfootville. And if you can catch it on YouTube or catch it on Amazon, and it was done in Oklahoma. And, Oklahoma at that time was really big to me because that was not too far after the Hanabi Oklahoma, the siege of LaFleur County.
The siege of Hanabi, right.
Which, that when we do the Plain State should be an episode. And Henry, we got to get David Wilbanks on for that. We really do. Yes. I've been trying to find this guy on social media, been very difficult. I'm not that connected, apparently, as I thought I was. Or even Henry and I, for years, had tried to find him via email. Any email we had for him didn't work anymore because he did a lot of research. He was the featured researcher in this episode of Bigfootville. And he took a radio show host out there to investigate, and they had some interesting rock throwings happening. And they did this, remote cabin expedition, and it snowed at that point in time. It's just a good I can't talk. It's a good documentary. Go out and check it out. Called Bigfootville. It's an old one, but well worth the watch. I think Henry would agree with me on that.
Yes, it is. And
go get yourself a copy of Kiamichi Bigfoot, because I think I'm going to start reading that one after we hang up the show tonight and get out there. I'm excited about a book again for that's rare. Not because I don't appreciate the work these authors put into it, but you have to understand, guys, we come from a time, roll that beautiful bean footage, where there wasn't a lot of books on the subject. Maybe 50 or 100, right, Henry? If that.
At least, yeah.
That's being liberal. And now, we're exploding. Like, researchers of today, you have such a benefit of so much information at your fingertips that we didn't have access to as easily. Do yourself a favor. Close thy lips, open thy eyes, and read. And if you can't, get yourself an audio book and listen. Or I'm sure Henry, if you call him, will read you a bedtime story every night.
There you go.
From a different Bigfoot book.
Henry's audio book.
We've lost so much because everybody thinks they have an answer. These fly-by-night, I could do a podcast on Bigfoot. I'm not putting anybody down because you know what? We're also guys that do a podcast on Bigfoot. But keep in mind, there's a lot of experience that comes with this podcast.
Right.
And a lot of that is because we read freaking books, especially Henry May, who may have read every book on Bigfoot that's ever been written. I don't know. Yeah. Is there any you haven't read, Henry?
Oh, there's quite a few.
We'll get on it.
Hey, what are you doing?
Henry, you're slacking.
Doing? Yeah.
But seriously, like the information age, we have it here. Yeah. Like use it and learn and ask questions and be bold, but don't be stupid. Like there's a difference between being bold and being stupid. And I guess talking with Cliff Vance really kind of reinvigorated my spirit because when I was a younger guy in this field, I kicked a lot of beehives over, and I was a little bit of an asshole from time to time. And Henry knows I've put my foot in my mouth more times than I probably should have, but I had a passion for this.
Right.
And at the time, I was probably one of the younger people involved in this research, Henry. Don't you think there weren't a lot of younger people involved at that time? And that's because I saw it on TV, and I grew up in a house where my dad made me watch shows like In Search.
Yeah. And I see the lexicon of this whole thing is changing a bit, especially with everything being upside down that it is. I do see a lot of younger generation stepping into this because it is cool. Let's read about it if they know how to read. which I'm still trying to figure out how to do myself.
It is cool.
Nonetheless,
Vance.
yeah, it is cool.
It is cool, but at the same time, like, you have to appreciate the history, and that's where I get torqued and bent out of shape, is when you don't appreciate the history of the people that have come before us in this field and put the time and effort in. And I've said this many times, when it comes to the, I'm just a mark on a page in the footnote of this amazing field of research that we're privileged to be a part in. Rather, some people, like the asshole at the beginning of the show, thinks it's all a joke and it's for the money, or I've spent more money than I've ever made on this quest, on this journey. Henry probably could have bought 4 houses for what he spent on books, and that was just from Ohio conferences. But in all seriousness, like, you have to respect people that have put the boots on the ground, the Tom Steenbergs, people that we were able and fortunate to learn from, so that we could be a little part of this. So we might be able to teach people something. And if there's one thing that I want to be able to teach anybody, and it's all this, is, respect the history.
Right.
Because you'll learn more from doing that than you're probably going to learn in the woods. Because, boys and girls, Bigfooting is boring 98.5% of the time.
Right.
It's twiddling your thumbs, walking through the woods, pounding on trees, whooping like you're a banshee in heat, trying to attract, something that, to elicit responses to something. You have to respect the history of this if you want to move forward. And all of us do. Like, even dusting the books off ourselves, boys and girls, like, read and learn and open your mind and just do. And then you'll get more questions to these answers instead of bothering somebody at 2:30 in the morning on Facebook Messenger.
Not that that's ever happened. There's a
speaking
aspect
of
to this.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Henry.
Speaking of Bigfoot books, Daniel Perez, I gotta recommend his BigfootTimes.net. He's putting together his list of Bigfoot books, and he's not done yet. He's got quite a few of them listed already.
Daniel Perez can be a polarizing figure at times, but when you think of one person that's contributed an awful lot to the field of Bigfoot by their constant, regardless of how this has been in pop culture, if it's been a hot phenomena or if it's been, colder than, James Baker's heart, he's done it. He's kept the conversation. He's kept the conversation going for over how many years, Henry? Well over 30 years, right?
Yeah, at least.
So we owe a little bit of kudos to Daniel Perez for keeping the conversation going.
True.
There's
another aspect outside of the books thing that is, in my opinion, it's just as equal in fascination, which is local folklore in certain areas. Like I did in the news segment, there's a lot of reports coming out of Illinois. Peoria, Illinois is almost central Illinois, which will run all the way into Kentucky. But there's a lore of the Coal City Monster. This was pretty much just kept to within the city limits of itself. It still runs a pretty hot lore. There's enthusiasts in this whole thing, and there's witnesses that have seen this white hair covered creature. And then as you go due east into Missouri, there's reports of this white hair covered bipedal creature in Missouri also. But that's just in a lore in itself. That's not that the books were written on it and there was all sorts of research. Once you get into Coal City in Peoria, or in the Peoria urban area, it's like this secret little talked about thing, and you can learn so much from the people just by interacting with them. When I went down there, it was just amazing how many people knew about this lore. Now the stories change a little bit, but you got to sift through, what the BS is from what possibly actually happened. But the bottom line is there's still the same factual information that remains the same between person to person to person as you talk to them down there, but yet there's no books written on this. And I think that's okay also. I think a lot of these witness reports in a small local area that had these crazy encounters, like Minerva, for example. Look what happened in Minerva for this one circumstance that happened, but it became the lore of the town. And you can get so much information just from the people there. And this all just goes outside of the books. So it depends on, I guess it depends on what your interest is. You can read as many books as you want, and I would encourage that. I think all of us would encourage that. But to also talk to people in areas where these circumstances may have happened or did happen, and you can kind of get a feedback from them too as to how much substantiality is there to what it is that you're trying to do and research.
Yeah, that's a good point. Guys, we've hit that time. It's 10 o'clock. What? It's time for us to say goodnight.
Good night, everybody. I'm going to bed.
Yes, tonight's episode was called Just a Conversation, as what it was. In 2 weeks, we'll be back to have a more fleshed out episode. Again, we apologize for being away. We didn't want to leave you, but we've had a lot of things that have happened over the last few weeks, and it's getting to be that time of year where everybody is so busy. So we're going to go back to every 2 weeks starting next program. So in 2 weeks, get your calendars out and mark that, because I don't have one in front of me at the moment that I can see.
Oh, man.
Henry's got some homework. James has
It'll be in June.
It'll be
You'll
in
get
June.
to see us more once your father pays his support.
Oh, that's terrible.
Wow. Yeah.
Folks, also next week, Memorial Day. Everyone be safe. Thank you for all those who've served and those who have served. We greatly appreciate your sacrifice here at Sasquatch Experience. That's not a canned throw in. I just wanted to get that out there because we will be on break. Again, guys, it's been fun. Might not have been the show we wanted to have, but it's the show it evolved into. Read a book. Get out there and read a book. And when you do that, my cranky ass will be a lot happier. Folks, I'm Sean Forker. You've been listening to the Sasquatch Experience. You can find our social media as we get the dulcet tones of James G. Baker here. Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not talking either. Okay. Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram. Squatch EXP on Twitter. Henry, take us out with those sweet, sweet words.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
Good night, everybody. Keep on squatching. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.